What's going on, everybody? Nick Whalen, Alex Barutha here with you. We are from RotoWire. Of course, you are watching the RotoWire YouTube channel. It's time to talk waiver wire for the week ahead. We're in the stretch run now, the fantasy basketball season, Alex. I do want to talk about the Nets as a team. I want to talk about the Hornets as a team. The Jazz maybe belong in that discussion. But I'll let you lead us off. Anybody you're really excited to go grab on waivers this week?
Stephon Castle just had a monster game, and he's 33% roster on Yahoo. He's kind of a who knows at this point because he was having he had a couple bad games. The minutes were low. Obviously, the Spurs are without Wembanyama, but the Spurs are dropping games left and right. And they are now in 13th. They are like 5-ish games out of the 10 spot in the West. And I wonder at some point, I don't know if they'll fully pull the plug, but I think there's going to be some opportunities where Chris Paul is going to get his days off and De'Aaron Fox is going to get his days off. And I think Stephon Castle is going to run this team for a decent amount of games, maybe in mid to late March.
I think it's a great point. Fox is nursing that injury. Chris Paul is like 38 years old. So I think the writing is on the wall now for the Spurs. And, I think they are the type of franchise that doesn't tend to fully pull the plug, but I could see some maintenance days being built in for both of those guys. And again, with Fox, he was openly talking about, I'll probably need surgery at some point. Wouldn't be shocking if they shut him down. And they're just playing ugly basketball right now. I watched that entire Houston game last night, and just not a lot going on offensively for the San Antonio Spurs, but 22 points on 22 shots for Stephon Castle. Only played 12 minutes in the previous game against New Orleans. So I think there is still going to be some unpredictability there, but I think that's a really good call off the bat. I'm going to bring up Cason Wallace. We know what to expect there. Not a whole lot in terms of points, not a whole lot in terms of threes, but last 11 games, he's given you 8 points, 4 rebounds, over 2 assists, and most importantly, 2 steals per game. If you're in a category league, you're always looking for steals, especially this time of year. So I'll throw him out there. Let's talk about the Nets, Alex. Ziaire Williams had a big game against OKC last night. Nets somehow almost won that game, by the way. Required Oklahoma City to actually try in the fourth quarter. 18 points, 10 boards for Ziaire Williams. He's averaging 14.5 points, 7.5 boards, 3.3 3-pointers over his last 4 games, over 30 minutes per game in that span. The Nets are very unpredictable. They've had pieces in and out. I believe they were without Claxton last night. Obviously Cam Thomas has missed a ton of time. Now, Cam Thomas should be coming back soon. He is now back to day-to-day status, but how much of Cam Thomas do you think we see the rest of the way? Does that really impact Ziaire Williams?
I think it might impact someone I'm highlighting more, which is Keon Johnson.
Okay.
Who is 17% roster on Yahoo. And I am worried that Cam Thomas is going to come back and play a vast majority of the games that are left. I'm sure he'll get some maintenance days left and right because it's a hamstring, so back-to-backs, whatever. Keon Johnson has been playing great. Fantasy managers were dropping him because he had a couple subpar scoring games. I think you're in a chance to buy back, at least in the short term, before Cam Thomas comes back. Big thing with Keon Johnson, if you can ignore the field goal percentage, which is terrible, he's giving you, over the past 14 games, 15 points, 5 boards, 3 assists, and 2.5 stocks for about 31 fantasy points per game.
Cam Thomas has ground to make up. I think he's going to come out firing over this last month and a half. We could see an all-time usage rate run for him. What about Sharpe? I think it's easy to look at last night's game and 25 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 blocks, 2 steals, hit a couple of 3-pointers as well. He was 7 of 7 at the line. Again, no Nick Claxton, but you could see the Nets maybe taking it easy with him. Maybe he picks up another flagrant and he's suspended again. But Sharpe is one of those guys that he doesn't need 31 minutes to be viable in deeper leagues. Even if we take that one out of the equation, well, I'll just pull up his last 17 games. Pretty random sample, but this dates back to mid-January. In only 17 minutes per game, he's still giving you 9 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and over a block.
Exactly like you said. He's a per minute monster, 1.3 fantasy points per minute this season. So he really only needs 20 minutes to be relevant in most 12-team points leagues. You mentioned the big game he had the other night because Claxton was suspended. Claxton picks up a lot of technicals, a lot of flagrants. I would not be surprised if this was the last game, or wasn't the last game that he was suspended for. And I think that at some point, I think they want to just see more of Sharpe because they gave Claxton the extension. Right. They already paid him, Sharpe is good.
I hate that I even have to ask this, Alex, but Killian Hayes, 7 assists per game over the last 3.
Yeah. I think if you really need the assist, that's fine. But if you're looking for any steals, he only has 2 steals in his 4 games, but I think that could increase. But Yeah, he's still on a 10-day contract, and maybe they're just buying time until Cam Thomas comes back. So if you need the assist, pick him up. Yep. Otherwise, no.
A couple Clippers on my list. Bogdanović is still out there in a lot of leagues. Not super competitive leagues, not deeper leagues, but I would double check for him. Points, threes, assists. Ben Simmons, if you're in a daily lineups league, I wouldn't do it for weekly because he is gonna miss a decent chunk of games. But 8 points, 6 boards, 6 assists, 1.8 steals since joining the Clippers. I am holding him in our 16-team league. That is a weekly lineup league, so I don't know if I'll be daring enough to put him out there. I'm going to throw out Haywood Highsmith as well while we're jumping around. If you're really desperate, played a bunch of minutes last night. They beat the Hawks. We talked about redistributing the Nikola Jovic minutes. Where did those go? Highsmith had been a DNP CD in a couple games before that, so I don't want to dive fully headfirst on this. But also worth noting that Terry Rozier was a DNP last night. He was healthy. He did not play.
And the night before that. Highsmith, Spoelstra clearly has a love-hate relationship with Haywood Highsmith. He'll get DMPs, and then he'll play 30 minutes, and it's back and forth. But someone's got to take those Jovic minutes. You're entirely right. Maybe we'll see more Jaime Jaquez. Who knows? But yeah, if you're in a daily transactions league, Highsmith, you can take a chance on.
Yeah, it's been all over the place. Like Duncan Robinson had a huge game, not just with the threes. He was giving you boards, assists, everything last night. Prior to that, he'd been terrible for a week. So you got to time the market on these Heat guys, but there are minutes available, especially if Rozier is just out of the rotation, which does appear to be the case. In terms of 3-pointers, Robinson is still out there in a bunch of leagues. Max Strus is widely available. Corey Kispert's available. Georgia's Niang is chucking up a bunch of threes. So those are all guys I would look at. But I'll go back to you. Who else is on your list?
I have some for shallower leagues. I have some pretty familiar names. Ben Simmons was on my list. Ty Jerome, we kind of know what's going on there. Aaron Wiggins is still on a hot streak. Roster him while he's hot. Bull. I kind of give up, honestly. Yeah. I really don't know. Roster him while he's playing. Drop him when he's not. Chris Dunn for the Clippers. This is more in like deeper, more available guys. I think you just ride out the Chris Dunn steals thing, and he's going to give you some assists as well until it stops happening because his steal rate's been crazy lately. And then 2 more names I have in sort of like standard to slightly deeper league territory. Aaron Nesmith for the Pacers, 16% roster in Yahoo. I think this is kind of an add and see. He's shooting really well over the past 4 games. That's kind of driving his scoring up. And last year, he needed 28 minutes per game to be ranked 133rd in 8-cat. And he's seeing 27 minutes per game over this 4-game stretch. So it's like he's really borderline right now. Like I think if you're in a 16-teamer, you kind of got to like wake up to Nesmith playing better. And then Kyle Filipowski for the Utah Jazz. This is pure stash. This is all stash because when the Jazz decide they're going to play their guys, you got to leave Filipowski on your bench. But when he plays 30 minutes this season, he's averaging 15 points, 10 boards, and 2 assists for 32 fantasy points. So if you have the stash spot, especially if you're in a deeper league, just keep an eye on Filipowski.
He was on my list as well. I love it. Lauri Markkanen has missed 9 of the last 21 games. I don't think that trend is going to reverse. And I think the best case scenario is they just do a full shutdown with at least some of these guys. I don't know if it's going to happen for Markkanen, Collins, and Kessler and Clarkson. But just if you're in a weekly league, being able to confidently lock in Filipowski would be nice at some point. We will see if we get there. Jose Alvarado still widely available, at least in ESPN leagues. I'm sure that rostership is higher in Yahoo, but double check on him. What about Jonas Valančiūnas, Alex? I put him on my list with a question mark. He's not playing very many minutes. He's only averaging like 15 minutes a game since the trade deadline, but in a deeper league, if you are trying to just bank some rebounds, the Kings are a team that does tend to play a lot of high scoring games. They're in some blowout scenarios really on both sides. We're talking about pretty modest outputs overall. If you could get 7.5 points, 6 or 7 rebounds, maybe somebody I would think about.
If you need the boards and you're in a deeper league, we know exactly who Valančiūnas is. So I think that works. Can I give you maybe the most sicko name we've ever had on this podcast or have had in a while? Or you look like you're trying to guess it.
Well, can you give me a team?
The Charlotte Hornets.
Oh goodness. Let me pull up the roster. It's not Taj Gibson, is it? It better not. No, I don't know. You tell me.
Damion Baugh.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Okay. Maybe. Make the case. Make the case.
So I'm gonna make the case. Well, first of all, in the G League, he was killing it. this season. He was averaging like 9 assists and 2 steals per game. This season in the NBA, in the 4 games he's played, 11 points on 39% shooting. Again, not great, but 4.5 assists, 2.3 steals. What really sold me, honestly, was watching him play the other night against the Sacramento Kings. He is all over the place defensively. He is playing with a defensive intensity higher than anybody else on the court, like pure effort. And if his steal rate's super high, he can pass the ball. We're talking about LaMelo is probably not going to play that many games down the stretch. Obviously, they're kind of in a tanking situation. Yep. I think if you're in a really deep league, you got to take a look.
Okay, I'll accept that. I also admire the Hornets' ability to just stack like the worst 3-point shooters in the NBA all on one team. Like I want it to work out for Nick Smith, man, but I don't know how many nights I can watch him start like 0 for 5 from 3 and finish like 2 of 11. I got some big men to throw at you. I'm looking at the Spurs right now, and we're still trying to figure out the post Wembanyama life. We've seen them go small quite a bit with guys like Sohan and Keldon Johnson. If Bismack Biyombo gets another contract, I may be interested. Obviously Charles Bassey has had a minor injury. He's missed the last 2 games. I don't know how long that's going to extend, but I want to figure out something with this Spurs front court.
You're right. The center situation is terrible. They're getting decimated on the boards every night. Biyombo is really the only consistent source of rebounding they've had lately. I mean, he's the only guy in the team besides Stephon Castle who's had a 10 rebound game over the past 5 games. So I don't know what they're going to do, but yeah, if Biyombo's going to get another maybe full standard contract and play 28 minutes a game or something like that, then you got to roster him.
All right, I got 2 more names on my list. They are also both big men, and they are both backup big men. So we're treading lightly here. Any interest in Andre Drummond and or Zach Collins?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, because some of it depends on Yabusele's injury. If Yabusele's going to be out for a while, then Drummond's definitely an ad. But I think you can add Drummond right now, and then if Yabusele comes back, you may have to drop him.
Yeah.
Zach Collins.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. I insist.
Zach Collins was also on my list. Vucevic has a calf injury. I'm sure they're going to be extremely cautious with that. Jalen Smith's dealing with a concussion. Zach Collins coming off a 21-17, 6-2 game. So I think you could just fire him up for now. Again, we've seen him put up big numbers in the past. We've also seen him put up terrible numbers in the past. He is totally game by game. But yeah, again, these are deep league flyers.
When Zach Collins has played at least 20 minutes this season, which has happened 6 times, he's averaging 16.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, over 2 assists, 1 steal, 1.3 blocks, 60% from the field. So I'm kind of leaning into the Vucevic narrative here. But it's still unclear to me if the Bulls want to make the playoffs, which I guess at this point you probably do, right? Like they get their own pick, so it's not like there's like completely no motivation to tank. But every year this team is in this spot, so I do think Vuce will play when he's healthy, but it's also totally possible that this calf could linger. But somebody to keep an eye on. And then with Drummond, I just have super low expectations for Embiid the rest of the way. It wouldn't shock me if he just never played again this season. Yabusele's dealing with like a corneal abrasion, so he basically just got poked in the eye. Usually that tends to be a pretty quick injury, but I mean, Drummond is another one of those guys like Day'Ron Sharpe and Biyombo, like doesn't necessarily need huge minutes. Like I think you could get those Valančiūnas type of numbers even if he's playing behind Yabusele and he's seeing 14 to 17 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, he averages about a fantasy point per minute. So, and when he starts, he plays 24 minutes, and that's good enough for a lot of leagues.
All right, so I'm at the end of my list, Alex. Who else you got?
Well, I'll follow your trend. I had Richaun Holmes as a sicko mode play because the Wizards seem to be pretty cautious with Alex Sarr's ankle injury. Holmes has put up some big rebound games. He is who he has been throughout his career, right? Which is like he's just a per minute guy, which is a lot of these backup bigs we're talking about. But his past 9 games overall, he started only 7 of them. 11 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block for 26 fantasy points. So someone, again, if you're in a deep league, you can take a flyer.
Okay. There we have it. Go check out all of our content here on the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball YouTube channel. You can find all of our podcasts archived here, all of our standalone videos. You can see it right on your screen there, rotowire.com/pod. Go check out the website. We got a lot of things coming there. We got a big redesign coming. Everything's going to be even more accessible, rotowire.com/pod. If you're still watching, please give us a like. Please make sure you're subscribed here at RotoWire. Alex, fun doing this as always. We'll chat next week.